I'm going to break out the whiteboard. Now I want to show you an example of why buying a negatively geared property is not such a bad thing in the medium to long term. We get a lot of questions from people coming through the business, buying their very first property, very concerned about cash flow, and rightfully so with rates being where they are right now. But if you're buying the right property at the right time in the right market, you can actually get ahead, and I'm going to show you why in this example right now. So let me show you in a very brief, simple example of why negative gearing is not such a bad thing. Now let's say we're going to buy a $600,000 house in Queensland, and let's say we're going to put a 10% deposit down to the bank to go and buy this particular property. Now if I factor in stamp duty, if I factor in LMI, which you're gonna have to pay if you're putting down a 10% deposit, let's say we have a 7% interest only mortgage. That is gonna cost us $744 per week, which is huge, right? But that's not all. That is just going to the bank. There are other costs associated with holding this property. You're gonna probably pay a property manager, you're gonna have insurance, you're gonna have rates to pay, you're gonna have some utilities to pay. I can't spell, but you get the picture. Now I generally factor in about 100 to 150 bucks a week in additional expenses. Now let's just call it, for the example's sake here, 150 bucks per week. Now I'm being very conservative with these numbers. You could probably squeeze that down a lot more. Now let's say this $600,000 property is in a great area, we've got a good yield, and we are renting it for $600 per week. As you can see, there is going to be a cash flow discrepancy here. So if I put these two numbers here together, that is gonna cost us $194 per week, which is huge. But we've got rent covering some of that expense, which means we are out of pocket by $294 per week, which is massive. Again, this example is probably a worst case scenario example, but 294 bucks a week, we are out of pocket. Okay, but here is where the important part of this example sits. This property, we have to buy the right property in the right market at the right time, because we want this property to be increasing in value by at least 5% year on year. Now, if we've done this right at the end of a 12-month period, or at the end of a 12-month cycle, we've held it for 12 months, this property should now be worth $630,000. Meanwhile, we've held it for 12 months. Now, this total annual cost is going to be just a little more than 15K. Let's just make it 15 to make this example easy. Now, you can see your property has increased by $30,000. Your expenses have been $15,000, 15K before you even speak to your accountant and get some of those tax deductions. So you are actually ahead by $15,000 in net equity. Yes, you don't have that cash in your account. Yes, you are gonna have to either sell the property or refinance to have access to that money. But the fact of the matter is your wealth has grown by $15,000. Now, if you had to put a 20% deposit down, this example just looks even better in the long term. Now, if you have a better rate, this example looks better. Remember, I've been very, very conservative and said it's 150 bucks a week, which is most likely not the case. So I have shown you a worst case scenario of what buying the right property in the right market at the right time can actually do for you in the long run. Now that wealth is only going to compound over time as long as you hold this particular property. But this is why having a negatively geared property is not such a bad thing if it is the right property.